NBA Draft, let's recap the Southwest Division, the home of the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets, Pelicans, Mavericks, and Grizzlies. Some top 10 picks here, three of them, in fact. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I live next door to Robert Irwin. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. The playoffs are over, but FanDuel still has the offers rolling in fast, hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms. So thumb it up, leave your comments down below. Now, in the last one of these that I did, the Southeast Division recap, I went through and explained the methodologies. I explained what the schedule is going to be coming up over the next couple of weeks. So I'm not going to waste you 3-4 minutes on that here. Just go back and watch the start of that Southeast one. If you haven't seen it, watch the whole episode, of course. But if you want to hear sort of how this all comes together and what all the rankings of that mean, go listen to that. And then we'll just get straight into talking about the Southwest Division in the NBA. Like we already said, there are 3 top 10 picks in this. There's one team that did not have a first-round selection, which was the Dallas Mavericks, and that is actually where we're going to start because we're going to go in alphabetical order. The Mavericks trading away their first-round pick in this one. I think this is the one that went to the... I don't even know where it went to the Nets. I'm not even sure where this first-round pick went. I went to the Knicks. Actually, went to the Knicks, part of the Porzingis deal. The one that they tanked to avoid giving up last year. But they don't have to worry about that anymore. That is done and dusted. So in the end, as per every second-round pick, they ended up trading around and finding themselves ending at pick number 51 with Melvin Ajinça. I had Ajinça at number 44 on my board overall. He's the cousin, I believe, of former NBA big man Pelicans legend, also Mavs legend, Alexi Ajinça, who had a really interesting fantasy game. Different sort of a player. Melvin's a wing. Alexis. Is his name? Alexis. I actually don't remember. What the hell was his name? Alexi Ajinça? Yeah, maybe. That was his name. Something Ajinça. He was a big man who had a pretty good fantasy game, just really struggled to stay on the floor with fouls and other issues. As for Melvin, the fourth of the French wings that was picked, he played for Saint Quentin. He averaged 18 points, but a whopping 3.5 threes per 40 minutes, which is a massive number. It is important to note this, and I've criticized Zach Ricochet for his low assist numbers, but European assists are... They're accumulated differently to NBA assists and college assists. They're a little bit harder to come by. The style of play that is played over in Europe makes those assists a little bit harder to sort of get as well. So it's not as gigantic of a deal. But yeah, 1.1 assists per 40 is obviously incredibly low. He had 0.9 steals and 0.1 blocks per 40 minutes as well. He's going to find it, I guess, hard to find significant rotation minutes. They took someone in that position last year, Olivier Maxence-Prosper, who barely played. I'm guessing they're going to be bringing back Derek Jones Jr. There is Josh Green. Whether they're keeping him around or not, I don't know. They just brought in Quentin Grimes, which is a huge steal for them to get someone like Grimes. Ajinça is a young player with the ideal frame, with shooting upside and with defensive potential. Makes sense. Who knows if he even comes over this year? Doesn't matter that much. Or at the moment, we don't have any two-way information for them. We have 3 Summer League signings, Jamarion Sharp, who I had at number 110, Xavier Johnson, and Jared Lucas, who I didn't have ranked at all. That doesn't really come into the discussion too much in terms of grading out this draft class because they're Summer League signings. Nothing super exciting overall with those guys. But, a relatively boring group, I guess, is the best way to say it. But they didn't do anything wrong. I think it's totally okay. I give them 1 Jerry West. Just a quick update. If you get 1 Jerry West, you're like in between the 50 and 80 out of 100. That's sort of my mark for Jerry West. It's a positive, but it's not like blowing us away. They get 1 Jerry West, the Dallas Mavericks. That then brings us to talk about the next team. We're going to a team with a lot more draft equity, a lot more draft capital in this draft because they had the number 3 overall pick. It is The Houston Rockets. This pick came via the Brooklyn Nets pick swap for the James Harden deal, which of course the Rockets have gotten themselves out of the Brooklyn Nets business now, sending those picks back and the Suns picks back. They had just the one selection in this draft, and in the end, they, at number 3, which is an unbelievable just bonus to be able to get that pick, they pick Reed Sheppard from Kentucky. I had Sheppard number 3 on my board. He's in my top tier for Dynasty, so there's 3 players in my top tier there. He's there along with Holland and Sarr. They just banged that one right on the head. Consensus didn't love Reed Sheppard. The consensus rank on him was about 5, which was weird to me. Well, that's not mock drafts. That's consensus big boards. I thought people would have been a little bit higher on Reed, having him at 5 is not what I thought would be the case. But that's okay. I had Reed at 3. He went at 3. His 3-point shooting numbers are insane. He averaged 2.9 per 40 minutes. That's not as big a volume as I would like. 5.3 rebounds and 5.7 assists is really strong. 3.2 steals and 0.9 blocks for a guy that's 6'1.5", 6'2" is crazy. The low usage is a problem though. 15.9 points per 40 minutes. But legitimately, the Kentucky guard bump has to be considered. Yeah, things were slightly different this season, but their best 2 players were both point guards, and they both came off the bench. And that's Reed Sheppard and Rob Dillingham. So, again, a very weird situation in Kentucky. So I'm giving the advantage there to these guys, or the benefit of the doubt. The size is a concern for Reed, but he's a pretty good passer. He's a very good shooter, not just from 3, but mid-range stuff as well. Defensively, he's a real pest. The vertical stuff is overstated. He doesn't have that big of a vertical leap. Those numbers are juiced from the combine. He said that himself. He's going to play limited minutes. Now, someone had some issues with me putting him in the top 3 for my Dynasty rankings, and they had a whole bunch of stuff, and they said, look, I think he's going to play under 10 minutes for the first 2 to 3 years. And let me guarantee you, there is no way that is happening. He will not start. That is true. But there is no chance that the number 3 overall pick is playing 10 minutes or under for 2 to 3 seasons. It is just not happening. I don't care what you think. It will not happen. It will take some time to get here, but Van Vliet can literally be a free agent after this season. The Rockets can say, we don't want to play you $40 million in year 3 and decline the team option. He's out. Dylan Brooks, who knows how long they keep him around. What do they do with Jalen Green? There are so many different moves that can be made. Sheppard might actually get traded. He might be on a different team. I just believe overall in that talent. The fit is interesting because I do believe he can pair very well with Amen Thompson, with Cam Whitmore, with Tari Eason, with Jabari Smith, with Şengün. The only iffy pairing I have is Jalen Green. I'm a bit iffy. And obviously you don't want to play him with Fred VanVleet, but that's not a long-term problem. He's just not going to do very much early on. He'll play a bench-ish role, along with the men coming off the bench, I'm guessing. But there's still, again, a lot of things that this team can do, the Rockets. They had no second-round pick, but I really like their selection of a two-way guy in Farley Dante. Big man, good shot blocking numbers. I had him 68 overall. Pretty strong selection here. Honestly, there is a chance that he can play. Their backup centers have been Jock Landale. It's been Jeff Green getting minutes there. They had Boban on the roster. I'm not saying that Dante is going to play minutes initially, but the guys they had two ways last year were like Jonathan Williams and Nate Hinton, I think, was on the team, and Jermaine Samuels. I think Dante is a class ahead of those guys. So I think it is a pretty strong result for the Rockets. Getting Sheppard at 3, solid enough. Dante with a 2-way, pretty strong. Doesn't quite get them to 2 Jerry Wests. They end up with just 1 Jerry West. Pretty good overall class, though, for Houston. Like that result for them in the 2024 NBA Draft. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We love sports. What else are we doing here? To see my stupid head? Absolutely not. We love sports. But during the summer, things do slow down. There's not as many sportsing through this time period. There is still some, because Major League Baseball's cracking. WNBA is out there. PGA Golf, we're going with that. PGA Golf sounds weird. Professional Golfers Association Golf. We sort of know that it's PGA. That's all happening as well. And FanDuel, through the summer, while it is a little bit slower, they're going to help you out. They're going to give you a boost or a bonus daily, every day. All customers, every day, boost or bonus over at FanDuel every day, all summer long. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, so that's 2 teams done. Let's take us to the Memphis Grizzlies, who had a lot of picks, and let's just talk about what they did. Of course, as everyone did in the second round, they traded picks around. I don't have any information on two-ways or undrafted free agents yet for this squad. I'll check if there's any updated information, but as of this morning, there was nothing that I could see as to anyone they'd signed. Let's double check that. Nope, haven't got any information on that. They went with Zach Edey at number 9. They did not trade up. We thought they might trade up for Donovan Clingan. They did not. They picked Zach Edey at 9. They picked Jalen Wells at 39 and Cam Spencer at 53. And the Edey one is really interesting. They seemed adamant that they wanted a center. They traded away Steven Adams. They ended up with this pick. I'm not convinced they necessarily needed a center. I think Jaren and Brandon Clark could have worked out okay. But they thought that they needed a center. Edey's numbers are obviously incredible. 32 points per 40. 15.4 rebounds. There's a lot of concerns for me with Edey. Obviously, National Player of the Year 2 years in a row. Behemoth. Gigantic. Massive. Also, quickly, I retweeted this yesterday. So they said, we need to give him a nickname. And some of the nicknames that people come up with, horrific. Now, I'm not always the best, but I know he had this nickname in college. Big Maple. Come on. We can do a lot. Big Maple. He looks exactly like the character Jaws from the James Bond movies. It's so simple. Jaws. It's simple. We're going with Jaws. Big Maple. Come on. If you're going to go Big Maple, at least call him Tree. Makes more sense. It's better as a nickname. Big Maple is horrendous. I'm getting sidetracked. For the size that he is, the minutes that he played, the competition he was up against, 2.7 blocks per 40 is not enough. 0.4 steals, incredibly low. Claims he might be able to take threes. Never did. Maybe that happens. I don't know. He's slow. Defensively, I'm very worried. Most of his offense came from the free throw line or a million post-ups, which I don't think works in the NBA. But it could. Maybe it does. Is he going to be able to get out of the way so that Ja Morant can attack the paint? Is he going to be sort of just plobbing around? They've got a lot of other guys who get usage. Jaren, Bane, Smart, Morant, and Gigi Jackson even, who I think is a better prospect than Edey and 3 years younger. But maybe he is just too big and it all works out. I had Edey 25 on my board. So obviously much lower than Memphis. The consensus had him at 22. I think most people were, you can say whether it's a reach or whatever it is, but most people were surprised that he went this early. And for that reason, based on the things that I've looked at with Edey, the way that I evaluate him, I don't like it. I don't like this selection of Zach Edey at number 9. As much as they say they wanted a center, there could be 3 other centers who were picked after him who end up being better fits in the NBA. Ware, Holmes, Messi, probably some other ones later on as well. I don't love taking high cracks at centers who aren't absolutely elite players, and I don't think Edey's ever going to be that. I just didn't like the value proposition. Yeah, sure, they need a center, but maybe they also don't. I'm not sure of the fit. I'm not sure, is he a guy that can actually be on the court in the playoffs? Is he a long-term reserve? I don't know. I am very much open to it because I'm open to a lot of things at this point. It's the beginning of these guys' careers. I'm not there with Edey at this point at all. We'll see what happens. Summer League will tell us something, but also not much because of the guys he's going up against. It'll be interesting to see how they use him in Summer League. If he plays, which actually I don't think he will. I don't think he's going to play, so maybe we don't even get that information in Summer League. At 39, they picked Jalen Wells from Washington State. I had him at 31 on the borderline of the first round. And you can see with their 2 picks, they chose shooters and shooters only. They declined Luke Kennard's team option today. Whether they bring him back or not, I'm not sure. But they brought in shooters. And these are 2 of the best shooters who struggle with a lot of other areas. Wells is younger than Spencer. Wells, I think he's like 21. Spencer's like 24. So both a little bit older than your 19-year-old sort of freshman, but that's an older class overall. Wells, I think, is good value. Spencer, to me, is okay as a second-round player. I think he'll end up on a 2-way contract. I had him at 64. It's fine. It's whatever. I think the shooting value of those guys is solid, but I'm really not convinced on the Edey pick. I'm not sold that it's terrible, but I'm definitely not sold that it's good. Therefore, the Memphis Grizzlies get 1 Isaiah Thomas. That's an L for me. Don't like it. It's not the biggest L you could get, but it is still an L. Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. This division has 2 of the most misplaced teams in the NBA geographically. Both Memphis and New Orleans should not be sitting in the Southwest Division. They should not be in the Western Conference. Hopefully, expansion enables at least one of those teams to move across to the East, and I'm sure both of them will be heavily lobbying the NBA to be able to move across to the Eastern Conference. Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans, who made a blockbuster deal yesterday, getting DeJounte Murray and giving up 2 first-round picks, Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance. I will not, like I said in the Hawks section yesterday, I'm not going to talk massively about that because there still has to be stuff that occurs. Because if they go into, they don't have a center outside of the one they drafted. If they have Ingram and McCollum still there, what are they going to do? McCollum, DeJounte, Ingram, and Zion, meaning Herb Jones and Trey Murphy come off the bench. Is DeJounte and CJ actually a good pairing together? Not really. DeJounte is an upgrade for sure. They didn't give up massive amounts of stuff, but he's not the complete answer. And they've got a lot they need to do still. Their draft was interesting. I thought they needed a center. I think they chose the incorrect center at pick number 21, which was Yves Missy. I had Missy at 23, so it's not that I think Missy was a bad player. I just actually hate that fit alongside Zion Williamson. Like, I hate it. So, positionally, need-wise, yeah. But what you need is a center next to Zion Williamson, who's someone who can probably shoot and step out a little bit and play defense and protect the rim. Now, Valanciunas had some offensive game. He claimed to be a spacer. He isn't. He couldn't protect the rim. Missy is never going to claim to be any sort of spacing player whatsoever. But he's going to be a very good defender, which is at least solving one of those things. But offensively, a Missy-Zion fit is horrible. So can they even start Yves Missy? I don't know. Or can he only play as a backup? He averaged 19 and 10 per 40 minutes, Missy. 2.7 blocks with 1.1 steals. He's hyper athletic. There is no semblance of offense whatsoever. He hasn't been playing basketball very long. Much like Zach Edey, which I should have mentioned before. There's room to improve some of his stuff, but I don't think his upside is through the roof, and I don't think there's any upside offensively apart from just like finishing on pick and rolls. And I just don't like the fit whatsoever. Again, like the player, love the value at I think there's really strong value at 21. I think it's the right area for him. But any other team, Phoenix at 22, who didn't end up being at 22, but they were in that area, they could have taken him. Like anyone could have taken him in that spot, except for them. I just don't get it. At 47, they chose Antonio Reeves from Kentucky. I had Reeves at 66, an older player. Shooter, sure, barely going to play, I'm going to guess. Maybe he's like a longer-term replacement for Najee Marshall. And obviously Dyson Daniels isn't there anymore. But like I don't think Reeves is going to have really much impact at all. Their other undrafted players they signed, no one on a two-way yet, but at Exhibit 10 to Keon Brooks Jr., who I had at 98. A Summer League invite for Josh Aduro, who I had at 113, and a Summer League invite for Jermaine Cousinard, who I had at 125. Overall, as much as I hate the fit of Yves Missy, and I'm not a big Reeves guy, I am going to give the New Orleans Pelicans, I'm just going to double check this. Yes, I am going to give the New Orleans Pelicans one Jerry West. It's not a reach on Missy. I just don't like the fit. Reeves, whatever, take it or leave it. But I'm going to give them one Jerry West. They barely made the Jerry West cutoff. They almost slid into the Isaiah Thomas. But there's still a lot to be figured out here with how this squad looks and all of that sort of thing. And that brings us into the final team. Well, actually, does it bring it to there? No, we'll get there in a sec. Well, one more team that we do need to talk about here, and that is the San Antonio Spurs. The Rockets picked at 3. The Spurs picked at 4. That means in the Southwest and the Southeast Division, that's the top 4 picks done in the NBA draft. You didn't really see things work out that way necessarily all the time. So let's talk about the Spurs picking at pick number 4. They went with Stephon Castle from Connecticut. And again, like a lot of picks, I didn't really like it. I had Castle at number 8. He's like 6'5". He is a very good defender. I don't think he can shoot. I don't think he's an all-world game-changing defender. And as you can see, those numbers, they're per 40 minutes. 17 points, like 0.9 threes, very low volume threes. Doesn't shoot them well at all. 7.3 rebounds, pretty good number. 4.5 assists, considering he wasn't the point guard at Connecticut. That's not a bad number. But I'm also not convinced he can be a full-time point guard, and that's what San Antonio needs. But when you're going to be lauded as a really great defender, I'd like to see some defensive events created. 1.2 steals per 40 is really quite low. 0.8 blocks is not bad for his position. Now, good defense is not just steals and blocks, very obviously. For fantasy, that is a part of it. But yeah, we can talk about him being a really strong defender, and he is. But does that make him absolutely elite? I'm not sure. The hope that the Spurs are going to have is that he turns into Derek White, a player that obviously they picked towards the back end of the first round, and then he developed amazingly. Castle's a way worse shooter than White. I don't think he's quite as good of a defender. Derek White's one of the best shot-blocking guards literally of all time in the NBA. Up there, John Wall, Dwayne Wade, like that's how good he is as a shot blocker, and I don't think Castle's that guy. I think White probably came in as a better passer than Castle, and I just think that you've got Victor, so you do need to improve your perimeter defense, and Castle does that without question, but I think the offense and trying to make him a point guard is I'm not very confident in that working out. So I had Castle at 8, he goes at 4, not super strong to me. At number 36, they traded around, of course they did, and they ended up with Juan Nunez, who I don't think will come over this season. He was playing for Ulm in the German league, and I believe he signed a new deal with Real Madrid. I don't think he comes over this season. Now, he is a guy that does struggle with shooting, which again, like, can we get some shooting on this team? But he's an unbelievably good passer. And there's a chance that he ends up the better point guard as a starter for this team than Castle. A chance, a small chance. He's got pretty good size. I think he defends okay, but it's the passing. The passing's unbelievably good. And he's got that over Castle very clearly. Now, Castle's a much better defender, much better athlete. But Nunez has that skill. Just got to work on the shooting. I had Nunez at 40. He went at 36, so that's right about bang on. Harrison Ingram, I had at number 69, transferred giggity from Stanford over to North Carolina. Just in this group of players in this 44 to like 55 range or whatever in the draft of wings who are like 23 years of age who don't really appear to do anything that's super stand out. And I look at it and go like, whatever. Like I'd much rather be trying to develop someone like a Sidi Sissoko who they took in this same range last season. Like Ingram might be solid enough, but like I don't think that really moves the needle much at all. I wouldn't, again, the second round is hard to judge because of the way of agents maneuvering players to get two ways and to get to certain situations. And it's not to say that, the Spurs had all these other options of guys they could have taken, Trey Alexander, because they couldn't. And Trey Alexander's agent said, we're going to Denver on a two-way. Like, what are you going to do about it? Again, hate the system, but that's what it is. So it's hard to be too critical of them taking Ingram when there are 10 other guys that I would have preferred they picked when we know the circumstances surrounding that. For their Summer League stuff, in Exhibit 10s, they don't have a two-way signed yet, but Riley Minix, great pick. I had Minix at 51. Took a little bit of time for him to get signed. Incredible numbers coming out of Moorhead State. Obviously, that's a very small school, and I believe, off the top of my head, that's where Kenneth Reed went. High-level rebounder Minix, put up numbers right across the board. Can play little four. I think that there's a real chance that he can earn a two-way and be someone that they develop through the way they did with Don Barlow. He is someone to watch. I like getting him in. There are the two Summer League guys they signed, DJ Horn, who I had at 126, and Darren Green Jr., who I didn't have ranked. Not going to have an impact overall on their ranking. Now, as much as I don't love the Steph Castle pick, I do like the Nunez pick. I'm not a fan of Ingram, but I do like getting old mate Minix in. They do end up with one Jerry West. It's a low-end Jerry, but they get one Jerry. They didn't slide into Isaiah Thomas territory. They were close to it, but they get one Jerry West overall for their draft. And that's the end of this show, because there's 5 teams done across the Southwest Division. 4 more divisions to go, and the only way you're going to know that they're there is by subscribing and thumbing up on YouTube. Follow on the audio side of things, double bang it. You know how it works, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.